Well, Andy had the Novi, and to me, the Novi was nice. I had driven the car I took my test in at American Rubber and Plastics, George Shalleck's car, terrible car. And it didn't make any difference. I was never going to go fast enough in that car to make the race. Just simply wasn't going to happen. Parnelli could see that, and Shalleck quit buying tires. He just thought if he didn't buy me any more tires that I would use my last set and pick up another 3 or 4 or 5 miles an hour. Well, it wasn't going to happen. And that yellow Novi kept sitting down here all by itself. Granatelli had sat out on the wall half the day with it. And my dad, as Parnelli said, just kept telling him, he says, get Bobby lined up in that Novi. He'll do good. Well, pretty soon, I guess in order to just keep my dad quiet, Ruth took me down, introduced me to Granatelli, and Granatelli sat on the wall looking like this, typical mean. And he looked at me and he says, Parnelli introduced me. He looked at me and he says, what makes you think you can drive my car? Well, I didn't even have an answer for that. I just wanted to drive it. And he finally just said, well, he said, I don't want you to wreck it, but go get your uniform on. Well, I ran back to the garage, got my uniform on, boy, I'm shaking like a leaf. And I came out there and I got into that car. And now Rufus didn't want me to drive it, totally from my dad. Because he had me a really nice car, almost identical to his, that he'd already made arrangements for me to drive. But I got in the Novi, and I mean, my third lap around the track, I'd run 147 miles an hour. He just did the 150 mile an hour barrier, broke it. And so, I mean, I came in, the windshield was too low, everything was wrong. Granatelli asked me, how is it? And I said, everything's fine, man. It's just really good. And so I ended up qualifying that car 5th quickest. Parnelli was my mentor and my boss in a lot of ways. He told me now that Granatelli's going to be a little hard to deal with, so you better go down and get yourself a little bit of deal made for some money. Because I didn't have any money. So I said, how much? And he said, I guess it doesn't hurt to say, but he thought I should ask for $10,000, which would have been a lot of money in those days. So he pumps me all up, boy, and I walked down there, and I told that Granatelli, I says, I want $10,000. And I remember, I didn't even have a ride the day before that. So I said, I want $10,000 to drive that car. Well, I came out with $1,500. I go down, now I'm afraid to go back and tell Parnelli what I got. It went from $10,000 down to $1,500. That's barely going to take care of my expenses, you know. But then I crashed the second lap of the race. But the Novi was so easy to drive. I mean, so smooth. The horsepower was smooth. It made a lot of noise. It scared everybody to death, including myself. It made so much noise. But I just really liked the car.
Yeah, it was an easy car to drive. I took the Novi out during tire tests and ran faster than I guess than anybody had ever run in it before Bobby got in it. But anyway, from that time on, Andy was constantly after me to drive the Novi. Well, I would never drive the Novi because it didn't have a very good record of being very reliable, and I had the same problem. So we would just make a good mix. But anyway, because of that, I started socializing a little bit with Andy. I mean, he kept inviting my wife and I out to dinner and that sort of thing. And great guy, we became great friends and everything else. So, and when he built the Turbine car, he had it about 3/4 of the way finished, maybe a little more than that. And it was over in Santa Monica, and he says, come over for lunch. He says, I want to show you something. And I had never seen the car before, but I seen it for the first time and realized then that probably wasn't going to work. It was probably too far out in left field and that sort of thing. So I happened to be testing this, I think, in March or something before the Speedway. I happened to be testing over at Phoenix with my own car, and I said, bring it over and I'll take a ride in it and see what I think, you know. And so I did, and the more I drove it, the more curiosity I got. And I didn't set the world on fire with it or anything like that, but I seen that I could probably come back and and make the race and do halfway decent, you know. And at least I felt that, you know. And my car, I thought needed some improvements for the next year and everything else. So I went home and I really had mixed emotions about whether I wanted to drive it or not, because it had a 3-second throttle delay time, and there was a lot of little quirks about that. And when you backed off the throttle, it was as if the throttle was still accelerating. I mean, you really had to use the brakes to slow it down. And I kept asking myself, well, you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I said, well, money's got to be a decider. So I asked myself, I said, would you do it for $25,000? And I said, no, I wouldn't. So I said, would you do it for $50,000? And I thought for a minute. I said, no. I said, would you do it for $100,000? Well, I thought for a minute, maybe for $100,000, I'd probably do it. So I thought, well, man, Andy will flip when I tell him that I want $100,000.
Oh, especially Andy.
So I did. I called him and told him, okay, I'll drive it. Give me $100,000. He said, okay, you qualify the car. In other words, I had to qualify. So, you know, and obviously I did. He didn't pay me until after I qualified either. But he, you know, and again, you know, I built a great relationship with them. And Andy did a hell of a lot for the Speedway. I mean, as far as his promotional and his pajamas that he wore out here with STP all over him and all that.
Not that I didn't wear them.
No. But he did a lot to promote the Speedway as well as the racing with the Novi's and also with the Turbine car. And of course, I had a lot of fun with the Turbine car because, you know, all the other guys, they were accusing me of sandbagging. People were sending me sandbags in the mail. And so I kept ribbing them by saying, well, tell me how fast you guys are going to run on race day, because I want to know where to set the screw. So I was ribbing them and having a little fun with that. But I never sandbagged. Never.
Well, I'm just going to play the violin for him when he says that, you know. I wonder where he went in the race. Nobody could see him. He was somewhere gone, you know.